So we are live for another episode of Project Peak Performance, and this one's a new concept that's actually been inspired by Alex, pack member, around his obsession on profiling peak performers out there. So this is the first episode that we've decided to do. It's a concept around jobs versus gates, and we're looking at profiling these two individuals around the 8 dimensions of peak performance and where we feel we sit on individual levels, but also from an overall scale, who wins out of the two of them. So welcome to this episode, guys. And we are live on pretty much any channel like YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook pages, all sorts of stuff today. So if you are out there from any different channel, welcome to the show and welcome to this episode. So first thing is it's mental health wellbeing day today. So before we start the show, let's just check in with each other. How is everyone? Out of a scale of 1 to 10. Dave?
8.5 out of 10.
Good. James?
7 out of 10 for me, Rob.
Ian?
Yeah, I was an 8 out of 10 when I woke up, maybe an 8.5. I've hit the gym. I'm flowing, so I'm up to a 9.5.
Oh, I thought we were going to get a 10 there. Oh.
Can't ever be 10. That's a lie.
And Alex?
I'm a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I had a good PT session this morning. Good day all round, and I've got the sun shining on me from the Velix window, so it's just taking me up a notch.
Nice. And I'm up to an 8 now, so which is good. So anyone out there today listening to this, or anyone listening to this on record, on playback, one of those questions to ask each individual is like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you today? Especially on World Mental Health Day. So let's get into this. Jobs versus gates. I'm going to be the ref of this one. So I'm going to control what's going to go on around this. Otherwise, we could just go on a tangent on one thing. So let's go over to the first one, which is mind mastery. So anyone listening out there, the 8 dimensions around the peak performance is based around the 8 dimensions, which we've got shown on this if you're watching it back on record. Mind mastery is all around crafting your mindset towards that. So the first one we've got question-wise is, how did their unique approaches to problem solving and innovation set Steve Jobs and Bill Gates apart in the tech industry alone? Who wants to go first?
I'll pick that one up. Straight in.
Go on, Alex.
So yeah, I mean, Jobs was, I'm starting Jobs. He was really, amazing at influencing others. And I think just to bring Gates into it straight away, Gates even praised Jobs' ability to cast spells on people and said he was jealous of his ability to influence others. And I think, an amazing example of this that I picked up recently was with the Macintosh. So in the early days, they were building the Macintosh and it was taking far too long to load. The lead engineer said it wasn't possible to make it quicker. And Jobs stopped him and quipped, if it could save a person's life, would you find a way to shave 10 seconds off the boot time? And the lead engineer said, probably. So Jobs went to the whiteboard, said if there were 5 million people using the Mac and it took 10 extra seconds to turn it on every day, that would equate to 300 million hours or so per year, which is 100 lifetimes saved every year. And in the end, they, of course, shaved 26 seconds off the boot time. So a great example of casting that spell, I think.
Brilliant.
That's a really good example.
Yeah, I'm out now. I've got nothing better.
Anything else on Gates style built on that part, Alex?
Not in terms of a specific question. I think, he led by doing and innovating. I think Jobs was a little bit more someone that liked to make a statement and, sort of do something quite powerful on the spot. So I haven't got as much on Gates, if I'm being honest, on that one, but happy for someone else to dive in at that point.
I'll touch on Gates. I think it's been quite interesting doing a little bit of the background research on these, but I don't know, watching them on stage, watching them being interviewed, watching them on various videos, because this is mind mastery. It's all about what's going on inside them. The vibe that I got is that Bill Gates is much happier than Steve Jobs across the board. He's much happier within himself. And I found that Jobs he had an undertone of anger about a lot of what he was saying, a frustration, often a reference to others or to competitors, which in most cases was Microsoft. Whereas with Gates, everything was much like Alex says there with Jobs. It was influence. He was a salesman. He was a marketing genius. He was able to understand, a bit like Gary Vee style, in terms of understanding behavior analysis of what people wanted before they knew they wanted it. Gates, on the other hand, was a genius, technically a genius. He was able to, much where you use that analysis there of, this is the problem I want fixed. Jobs influence someone else to fix it. Gates would just fix it himself. So I think that's the big difference between the two, is Jobs needed people around him to operate his influence and his style. Gates just did it himself. Like, if he needed to, he'd just do it himself. Even to the point that Jobs had to get Gates in for Apple to do certain technical work for their products. So I found it really interesting just watching how they were in their own sort of comfort of their own body. And I would say, in terms of mind mastery, Gates had it on lock because he could technically just deliver himself. He didn't need others around him all of the time to do it. And he just seemed happier. And I think that might be why down the line, you look at Gates now and what he does in terms of his charitable work and his commitment to solving certain things around the globe. He just seems like a happier individual for me on mind mastery.
Where's my camera? There it is.
Dave.
That's really strange that you've said that, because I kind of get it, but it goes against what I've researched, to be honest, with regards to the mind mastery. So only from research, and just to let everybody know, I don't know these guys personally, obviously, or done a ton of research before this. Just literally for this, we wanted to get as much as possible. And on the reading that I've been doing, Jobs was huge into Zen meditation, which, from a mind mastery point of view, has a lot to say for how he thought. This was before Apple that he got involved in the meditation side of things. And from reading as well, Gates actually struggled with his own identity and felt really bad when Jobs actually got him on a live video on one of his shows, and when he was showing a product launch, that's what I'm going to say. And he got him on, and everybody in Apple booed him. Nobody liked Bill Gates within the Apple brand, or none of the staff or anything else. And it apparently really affected him, which is why he started going down the charity and philanthropy of, however you say it. He's a philanthropist. So I think, from my side, that from the mind mastery, I get the happiness side of thing, and I get that because he used to flow off the handle and stuff. But I would have had Jobs down, to be honest, to be more of a mind master than Gates. I see Gates as more of a very educated negotiator, and Jobs as more of a maverick and inventor.
Interesting. Because my research led me down a very similar path to you, Dave. And I don't know whether I'm getting this exactly right, but the concept of Windows originated from a meeting between the two of them, where Jobs had already had the conception of the idea to have essentially what Windows became. And he asked Gates for his input and his opinion, and Gates essentially stole the idea and created Windows.
That's what I read.
And so in the documentary I watched, I was like, wow, I didn't realize there was such a close connection between the two of them, in terms of, I knew generationally they were in the same era, but I just didn't realize that they did have the opportunity to collaborate. And Gates almost ruined that because he stole the concept from Jobs and created Windows. But coming back to the mind mastery piece, like you say, the Zen meditation, the real connection to Eastern culture, and that kind of finding your inner calm, because outwardly Jobs did come across as a particularly angry guy, right? Outwardly. Yeah. But it seems like inwardly he was in control of that. That was the persona he had created in order to capture his audience's attention. Yeah, it's interesting.
I feel sometimes for someone that's trying to influence people, which obviously he was phenomenal at, and I'm all team Apple. I'm streaming here with a Mac and an iPhone sat next to me. But when we're talking about an individual, one of the things that I found quite interesting is he talks a lot about marketing, and he talked about in the early days about Apple being as big as some of the big brands, Nike, Disney, etc. And then he gave a really strong analysis of how Nike's marketing never talks about Adidas. It always talks about how good the product is, the athlete, the feeling, the connection. But then in a lot of the stuff that they do, it was totally hypocritical. And it's a classic case of, for me, someone that's a very good salesman that ultimately has some inner demons inside. Because on social media in this day and age, if you say one thing and do another, you will be found out. And Jobs continually did that. He said, this is great marketing. This is how we do it. We talk about this, even down to the point of TV advert commercials, belittling Microsoft with two actors, you know, the Macintosh guy and the Apple guy. You know, if you've seen those, they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
And even sitting down and watching an interview, I think it was 10 years ago, something like that. They managed to get longer than 10 years ago, obviously, because you've been gone for 12 years, I think. But I think it was 2011, something like that. They're actually sat there on stage, Gates and Jobs, and you would appear that they got on quite well. But the undertone of little digs that you see from Jobs towards Gates is there. There's an inner piece sat in there of frustration with something somewhere, and whether that is going back to him being adopted, or whether that's going back to the frustrations of Microsoft stealing ideas, if that was what happened. But everything that Gates said was very calm, controlled, technically correct, and Jobs had an undertone of negativity there. So that was my take on it. Obviously, we all have different views of different ways of looking at things, but I found that quite interesting watching.
Alex?
I mean, we're talking around Jobs and how he influences people. Do you think that part of that, you know, that commentary was around getting his guys behind him and creating that sort of tribal culture, the way that Ferguson used to do at Man United, for example, of he knew that was what would get them to give more. So therefore he projected this, it's us against them kind of thing? Or do you reckon it was actually the undertone sat within him and he couldn't hide it?
I think he was a visionary leader, obsessed with his vision. And as a result, it worked well for him to have a certain persona and us against the world mentality, if you like. Yeah. And to do that, you're not all, and I'm bringing this back to the mind mastery. You're not always 100% in belief of what you're saying. I think even one of his quotes were that you can't connect the dots of the future. You can only connect the dots of the past. So you have to trust the future. So part of his just being a visionary, part of it is you don't 100% believe it because you don't know if it's going to happen. And I just felt that with Jobs. There was cases where he was saying a lot of things and you just a read on body language that he was a confident person, but he didn't necessarily believe exactly what he was saying, because you can't as a visionary. But with Gates in mind mastery and ultimate confidence in what he was trying to achieve, because technically he was able to do it, he was completely confident in what he was saying. And it doesn't surprise me that if you get booed on stage as someone that's technically minded, not a confident social speaker, not someone in that environment, that's not his place. His place is one-on-one lab office. You know, that's where he's confident, not on stage, which is where Jobs is confident. So it depends, because I think you have to put them in different boxes as personalities or demographics. But that was quite interesting watching and reading into body language and how they kind of evolved, really.
It's interesting to say that, because if you were to psychometrically profile them, they fall into different areas of a disc profile, don't they? Significantly different. Gates is very much a C profile. He's very much process and very task oriented, where it's quite clear Jobs is a very strong D category. He's very driven, very results oriented, but also very people focused. So he's got the I in him. And so it's very interesting to see that they're almost on complete opposite sides of that spectrum, but were both able to achieve monumental things in their respective field. Because I do think they're very different. One was very design focused and functionality, user functionality focused, and the other was very software and process led.
One was more problem solving, one was more innovation led.
That's it.
Yeah. I'd refer to Jobs as front end and Gates back end.
Yeah. They could have been what a powerhouse they would have been together, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So for my mastery, for Jobs, what are we saying, Ian? Like, to you, what number out of 10?
On mind mastery,
Yeah,
I would give him an 8.
Alex?
Who are you giving an
No.
8? Sorry.
Jobs.
Jobs.
Yeah, I'd give Jobs a 9.
James?
9.
And Dave?
Jobs, I'd give a 9, yeah.
9. So we're saying 8.5 on that one. Gates?
Same order.
I
Same
would give
order,
a
Ian?
9. I'd give a 9.
7.
Alex? Oh,
The digs are coming in now.
I'd actually give him an 8.
oh, back up to the 8. Okay.
Mind mastery. I'm going to give him a 9.
So actually, it evened out really. Cool. So next one, purposeful achievements. Again, this is quite an interesting one for you guys to discuss, isn't it? Because they each have different types of purposeful achievements. So, like, what goals did Steve Jobs and Bill Gates aim to achieve, and how do they manifest their visions into reality? And that's quite a different route. Like, Dave, maybe over to you on this one.
Yeah, I was going to get one. My previous answer might have got confused with this. And as I saw the purposeful achievement, I held back a little bit, to be honest, because I think that in the way that they have orchestrated their business plans going forward, I have Jobs on the top of this one of purposeful achievement because of what he's trying to do with the products. He's trying to create products that people don't even know they need right now. That's how forward thinking he's going with it. And it's all to make ease. And his company, from what I can tell, is designed around the customer experience and journey. So design comes first, profit comes later. And I think that as a purposeful achievement way of living your life, if you can run that through your business and your business ethics laid behind that, I'm going to put him on top. Whereas from what I can see, Gates is more, he looks at the money and what people need and then how we can make money from it in the background. So it's not led from as much from innovation and customer experience and pleasure as it is with Jobs. So purposeful achievement within the workplace, I'm going to be giving it to Jobs based on what I've just said.
Alex?
And yeah, I'll come in with a couple of stories on Jobs that backs that up. So I know that one of his big obsessions was trying to get the iPod to find your favorite song in 3 clicks. So that became an absolute obsession. Again, we spoke about influencing. He was influencing engineers and people like that to deliver on that concept, continue to work with them, continue to throw away, different versions until they got it right. But eventually they created the click wheel, which essentially allowed people just to scroll rather than click, and therefore tick the box of being able to find that song in 3 clicks. And also looking at the iPod, I know that the size of it, even though it was the smallest thing on the market, one of the versions they created, he still wanted it to be smaller and he wanted it to fit a certain size. And people were saying, again, it was impossible. So he got that version and went over to a fish, a fish bowl, and threw it in. And there were air bubbles that started coming to the top. And he goes, there's some space, make it smaller. So it's just, again, very influential in terms of making others do the work. But 2 great stories, I think, that show that there was a purpose of 3 clicks or certain size of that he wanted something, and he was just going to be obsessed until he got there.
He
So
was
the ultimate
obsessed by simplicity, wasn't he?
What, sorry?
So James?
Obsessed by simplicity.
Yeah.
But it's also the functionality, the feel. I remember reading, and this wasn't part of this research, but it's flooding back, because do you know what happened as soon as you referenced the story about the click wheel? I don't know about anyone else, but immediately I could feel it. I could feel how that felt to scroll that wheel and press that button, because it felt different. And it was all about that experience, the touch, the feel, the simplicity, even the box that it gets delivered in. He obsessed over every finite detail, didn't he?
And what was the song you were trying to find, James, with your 3rd click?
At that time, based on the age that I was, it was probably something by
Barbie Girl.
Ian?
Yeah, I think Jobs was the visionary. Jobs wanted to create something that was not built. He wanted to reinvent. He wanted to disrupt the industry in a positive way. which I can only relate to, you know, in that. So it just took on looking at purpose and achievement, everything that Jobs was trying to do just totally connected with me. And I think when you look at some of the bits that he kind of said, there's a quote of Jobs: "Don't let the noise of others drown out your inner voice." And you could see that he was so like focused on his own vision, his own kind of ideas, that sometimes you kind of feel, I guess, when you're in that, it's quite a lonely place to be. And there's a lot of angry noise from competition, from others, from people that don't like change. And he was kind of almost reminding himself that just stay true to your inner voice, stay true to your inner goals. And I thought that was very clear of the reason why he would conquer his stretch goals, was because he was so confident in what he was trying to achieve. Even if others didn't see what it was that he was trying to do, he would influence his circle, his gang, his tribe, his pack, to get to the end result. Whereas when you look at their kind of ultimate missions, Gates wanted Microsoft computers to be on, you know, every table across the planet, didn't he? So is that something that's truly purpose driven or profit driven? It would be hard to say that's not profit driven. I see why he would have said it, because he sees it as a benefit to the human race, but I think deep down that's an agenda of profit there. So from a purpose point of view, setting stretch goals, I would put Jobs ahead of the curve on that one.
Awesome. So what we doing number wise? Ian, back to you.
I would go 10 out of 10 for Jobs.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone else out there that's done more when you look at the Apple products. And I would say 7 out of 10 for Gates, because he still achieved some pretty amazing stuff.
Alex?
Yeah, I'd match those scores. That's what I had in my head.
Yeah. James?
Can't argue them scores.
Jesus. Dave?
Be different, Dave. Don't follow the crowd.
Okay. Do you know what? I'm going to give him an 8.
Think different.
And the reason I'm going to give him an 8 isn't purely based on the Microsoft stuff. It's based on what he's done subsequently from that. So as a person in life, a lot of the charity work he does, which I know is he's frowned upon in certain places, but he's putting it out there, and he gives a lot to charity, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that benefit from his charitable donations. So I'm going to give him an 8.
And Jobs a 10.
Jobs a 10, yeah. I'll give him 11 if he could, but I can't.
So basically, you're giving 10 to Jobs because he put a little thingy in your pocket, and 7.
I just like his mission. For me, it's I'm biased, mate. Sorry, I just think Jobs is going to win. If he doesn't win, I'm going to be very upset. But yeah, I just think that just because of the way his vision is, and from what I can see anyway, maybe that's marketing, but from what I can see, I think he's more purposeful in his mission for business and what he wants to do for the human race.
So next one, learning and growth. So this one, obviously for the actual dimension of this, is all around the continuous learning and contribute towards long-term success of yourself. So like, you know, are you learning? Are you growing? How much knowledge are you trying to consume to go in that process in that part to it? So if you go into that module, it's all around that element to it. So in what ways do you feel the learning contributed to the long-term success of both Steve Jobs and Bill Gates? Obviously, I know Steve Jobs had his life and shortened it, but from his period of like, how much do you reckon he learnt within that period compared to maybe Bill Gates? Who wants to start this one?
I can start this one because this is a slam dunk, a bit like the other one's a slam dunk. This for me is like a straight 10-5. Gates, in terms of how his brain works and his capacity to learn and grow, is 10x on Jobs in every day of the week. In terms of just how technically his mind works, he reads books at like 150 pages an hour with 90% retention, and he processes while reading. That's what they found out when they analyzed how he reads and how he absorbs material. He'll go on holiday and read 14 books in a week. If he's reading anything, he's not just reading it, he's processing it while he's reading. The brain is a supercomputer and his is fully optimized. If there's a problem, he doesn't just read one book on the problem, he'll read 5 or 6 books to get the lay of the land, take the average, and then put his own spin on it. So in terms of technically reading, developing and growing to find the answer, Gates just slam dunks this one without question, for me, without argument, because Jobs is amazing at kind of, again, that visionary goal setting, but he needs the team to do it. His is a leadership mentality, which is to get people to do and find the answer. Gates finds the answer. So in terms of learning and progression, you could argue and say personal development and progression and learning, and they were both college dropouts at the end of the day. They both didn't complete college. They both dropped out. So learning and growth is both within them, but in very different ways. But actually, in terms of getting it on lock and being a better person every single day, Gates, if you ever see that video with his PA where she just, every time he went on a trip, just put all of the books he was currently reading into this massive handheld bag, and that book bag would have to go everywhere with him. That just shows someone who's quite insular within themselves, not socially the same as a Jobs maybe, but when he's sat at home or when he's away, he's reading, learning like 24/7 basically. So that was what I took from it. It'd be interesting to see what the guys kind of thought, but that was for me on the 8 dimensions, just a slam dunk, really.
Do you think the purpose that Jobs had, obviously his purpose was so clear, do you think that went against him a little bit in terms of it was like, well, I know what I'm doing and I'm just going to keep working trial and error until I get there, rather than feel he needed to learn on the go? That's sort of a little bit of what I read into when I was looking through the research.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that quote about connecting the dots backwards, but you can't connect them forwards. And I think there's 2 different types of people, isn't there? There's people that kind of have an idea, take a step, take action, and then they'll find perfect later. And then there's people that need to know, they're obsessed with the answer. They need to know what the answer is. We had Dimitri on, didn't we? And when Dimitri was talking about his Crohn's disease, he did research to find out if anyone had sort of got through it, and he found that there was 3 people, and one of those people didn't have anyone else to fall back on. There was the 2 people had found the answer afterwards, but one person found the answer with no one to fall back on. So it's kind of, you can look at things in different ways, I think. And yeah, in terms of learning and development and growth and knowledge expansion, if you look at those last 2 words on that, yeah, Gates had an obsession with learning, I think, and Jobs had an obsession with his vision, which 2 quite different things.
That would be the thing, wouldn't it? The split in the 2 of them is very clear based on that last sentence. I think it's Gates wanted to have a real clear view of his direction before he implemented, whereas Jobs was so much clearer on where he wanted to go, how he was going to get there, happy to make mistakes, happy to fail, happy to learn, and then happy to iterate, but didn't necessarily, maybe a borderline arrogance of, this is how it's going to be done. I've just got to get the people around me to do it.
There's two quotes as well. I took 2 Gates quotes. It's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure, which again just falls back on someone that's never carried away with what they're achieving, because they're always progressing and looking forwards. And then another one that you put is, we all need people that will give us feedback. It's how we improve. And they're kind of 2 quotes which from Gates stands out as someone that's just got that learning obsession, to find the answer, to always be able to give an answer.
You wouldn't catch Jobs saying that last one either, would you?
No.
He wasn't interested in other people's feedback to learn. He just wanted people to listen to what he had to say and then deliver it.
I'll give you the Jobs kind of version of that. This is one from him. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's, which is also very powerful. But when you look at learning and development, it's kind of like, your opinion is not so relevant because I'm focusing on my map. And not either of them is incorrect, but in terms of this particular dimension.
Dave? Go on, Dave.
Sorry, yeah, I've got to say I kind of agree with Ian. There's a lot to be said for what Alex was kind of referring to, or what I took from it, and the fact that he had a really clear vision, and his way of let's build it, see what the problems are, fix them along the way. Is that a right or wrong way to approach it? To be more focused on whatever the goal is ahead and concentrate all your efforts on that and not veer to one side. I'm caught on this one, I'll be honest. Initially, it was Gates based on my research, but by listening to this, I'll be honest, I'm putting them more at 50-50 because I think that the attributes to both of the directions are as worthy. So, yeah, I'm going to give them.
Go on.
Sorry, yeah, for me, I'm going to give them both. I think they both learn in completely different ways. They've grown in completely different ways, although there's similarities between them. Whatever they're doing is clearly working for them, or was. So yeah, I'm going to put them both. I think they're both up there as a 9. I'm going to equal them just to throw the cat amongst the pigeons.
You haven't done the scores yet, mate. Come on.
Give it now. What are you going to do?
Alex is ready to chuck in there because that might change it, mate. It might go down to a 6 for you.
I just, to be fair, I completely get the argument for Gates on this one. I just think one more thing we need to note is the growth moment that Jobs had when, he was a bit bullish. He put people's nose out the wrong way, the ones that weren't sort of up for the long hours and coming along for the ride. And in 1984, Apple fired him. And ultimately what he did, he showed the definition of a growth mindset and ended up turning it into ultimately the best moment of his career. So went away, had some time out. I think he entered into that Zen Buddhism mode, and ultimately came back to Apple stronger to oversee the biggest phase of their growth. So there was an element of, we've got to acknowledge that growth moment from him, because who knows what went on in that period of time, but he must have taken some stock and came back bigger and better.
Well, the fact is that you can see in the background of it is, like he said, he had he built Next, didn't he? He built something that wouldn't even work without Apple, but Apple needed him at the time. So to be able to go away, be fired from that, fully knowing you're going to build something that they're going to need in the future and learn from it is equally inspiring, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So where are we going on this one, Ian? Jobs and Gates?
Based on this dimension, Gates is a 10 and Jobs is a 5 for me.
Yeah,
Alex?
I'm gonna go Gates 9, Jobs 8.
James?
Gates 10, Jobs 8.
Dave?
Pair of 9s.
Pair of 9s. So then number 4, energizing recreation. This is quite an interesting one for these two guys. So activities, exploration, getting outdoors, doing that element to it as a part of being peak performance. So what do you find, maybe from an energizing recreation, did you come across anything that you felt Steve Jobs or Bill Gates did to recharge and find more inspiration in themselves?
Research that I did led, and I didn't know this about Steve Jobs. It was only through doing a bit of digging. But his inspiration came from, especially in the energizing recreation, came from some quite eclectic passions. So a couple to note: calligraphy, design. Design is probably a little bit less left field, but obviously because of his heritage. He was huge into Eastern philosophy, so we've already talked about the Buddhism and the Zen and the mindset and so on. I found that quite interesting to read about things like the calligraphy, so the artistic side, the creativity. It was all connected in some way to being creative. And the bit I found very interesting around that is that it's almost like Steve Jobs' whole world revolved around creativity. And innovation around design, and so the whole environment that he created had almost one purpose.
Is anyone else going to add into this?
I can't relate to this because they're so far away from me. I mean, I would kick their ass, both of them, on this dimension.
You can score yourself on this one, Ian.
Yeah, so I'm going 10 for me. No,
You give me-
Job's favourite hobby was gardening. Gates' favourite hobby was playing bridge. Like I can't really give much more than they're both equal on it, but they're both pants, and that in its own way was because they didn't have time for this, because they were doing what they were doing in an amazing way, and they put their own personal recreation hobbies to one side. Gates, I think, obviously has lived a longer life, fortunately to him, so he's probably seeing more of this now. And Jobs would have been equally probably spending more time doing that now had he been alive, I would have thought. But in the thick of their kind of prime, neither of them prioritized this, I would have thought.
It's interesting looking at Jobs, because it's almost like how the kind of things he liked doing at the start of his life was quite active and engaging, and as time went on, it became a little bit more almost like slowing his mind down, sort of coming down a few notches. So, early years, Jobs like reading, swimming, music, and practical jokes. And there's always stories of him and Wozniak at the start. They created a machine that cut the switch on TVs. So effectively, people would be watching TV, they'd stand outside and just turn it off and just watch people just get, they're fuming and just laugh. And as they're coming over to sort of hit the TV, they switch it back on. So they sit back down and stuff like that. So it was all around just activity and being quite lively. And then I think he got a summer job in an electronics company as a teenager. And then obviously that became his obsession at that point. But later in life, as Ian mentioned, gardening. Gardening was a big thing alongside sort of some of the Zen things that he liked to do. So he did used to like presenting his garden to visitors. So I think that gives an insight of it wasn't necessarily always for him. He still wanted to show off something he'd done to other people and get that justification or pat on the back.
Anything else for anyone?
Score them up, Rob. Let's score them up.
This is going to be
There's not a great deal on this one. I've done a bit of research. Not a great deal. I saw playing bridge, reading, and tennis for Gates. I couldn't really find anything apart from meditation, to be honest. On Jobs, I don't think any of them have done a great deal on this.
I'll throw a question back to if you look at someone like Ian, like you've just said, then with how you've got into your running and how you've got into your energy, your exercise and that recreation, and how you guys have literally just said, like Alex, you said, I've just come from a PT session. Like James, you're going through Dimitri's sort of well-being, that part to it. Dave, you're on that journey because you were that person who was drinking from our previous podcast, late thingy, like trying to act. Do you feel like anything would have changed in their performance as a leader or enhanced anything different? You think about how Apple is with the watches and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Do you think if anything would have changed if they had time to do recreational stuff?
I think they would. I've never seen a negative outcome from, having a good lifestyle with recreational activities in the background. I think that it would have benefited them 100%. How much time out of work is required to hit the number, and would that cause a negative effect? I doubt. I honestly think it would have. If they could have maybe done more of it, or would have seen more of it, I think that it would have benefited them in multiple ways.
I've got to say, Rob, brilliant question, because I don't agree. And the reason I don't agree is that they were both so obsessed that I feel entering into the world of energizing recreation would have been a distraction. For them. I'm not saying for general folk, but I just think, especially Jobs, there was no room for that stuff, and until later life, until he decided he needed to slow down, and by all intents and purposes that was too late. But that obsessiveness, would Apple have become, I'm a big Apple fan, I'm a big Jobs fan, so it's hard for me to give the same opinion on Gates despite the research, but I just can't see it for him as a character.
Alex, Ian?
I think looking at how the world is over the last 5 years, would Jobs have diverted post-lockdown into a different way of living, a different way of spending his time? I think marginally he would have, but not not heavily influenced by it, because I think he would still be thinking of what is the next big thing, what is the next big creation, what's the next problem I can solve. And because that was, it's a bit like when you listen to Alex Hormozy, you know, when you listen to Alex Hormozy, who's the modern day, you know, pioneer of that kind of social entrepreneurial kind of, you know, he wants to be Warren Buffett from a financial point of view, and he's kind of building something. And he's like, well, I don't need recreational time, because when I'm got downtime, it's when I'm working, and that's when I'm happiest. And I think they're probably in the same place, that they're happiest, you know, in that place. That is their recreational time. And yeah, I'm always fully focused on this trilogy, this kind of this wealth, family, and health kind of 3 goals. And that means I don't have a lot of downtime, but I'm happy when I'm doing all 3. So that is my recreational time. So yeah, it depends how you flip the question, but I don't think they would have been influenced that much. But I think Jobs, if anything, would have been slightly, if he knew what he knew now, obviously, you know, in health and things like that, I think he would have probably changed. But I think just going through the journey of lockdown and stuff like that, would that have had an impact on either of them? I reckon Jobs would have been changed in a positive way a little bit more than maybe Gates, because I think the technically minded head that Gates had, it wasn't to be influenced in the same way.
Alex, anything else to add on that?
Good question. Not much more to add. I think would it have been good for them to take on some of those habits? Probably. But whether they would or not, I think the point around lockdown, you know, that shaped a lot of people's change in recent years. So I think, you know, would as many people have changed what they do without that? Probably not. But that was a massive turning point for a lot of people. So would it have been good for them? Yes. Would they have done it? Probably not. given their obsession with work, as James said.
Same for the scores then. Ian?
I'm going to give them both a 3.
Okay, Alex?
Yeah, I'll go 5 each. I'm a big tennis fan, so.
James?
Got to mix up the order of scores, because Ian gets to go first and leads the charge, and then I kind of think, I can't give the same score. So you've got to mix this up for the answers. But they're low, so I'm going to go 2 4s.
2 4s.
Dave could give the clincher here.
I'm not, guys. I'm afraid. I think they're both pants at it. Yeah, so I'm with Ian. 3.
So it could both come out at roughly 4 then. So over to the next one, right? So we've got number 5 halfway through this. So empowering relationships. This is a very interesting topic. We've already covered most of it. So how do you feel their ability to build and nurture relationships with colleagues, partners, and competitors influence their career?
This is so hard, because we never had the privilege of being in the circle. And that's the thing that becomes quite difficult on this particular dimension, to actually review without either talking to the person or experiencing and seeing it. So yeah, just by the way, there's a couple of people checking in, so people are watching and liking, so thank you for everyone that's checking in, by the way. Yeah, I struggle with this one, because you can only really read media narrative, you know. I mean, Bill Gates' best friend is Warren Buffett. That's pretty cool. But other than that, I can't really tell you. So I can't imagine that either of them had huge social circles. I would have thought they probably had 2 or 3 people they were really tight with, and being really shrewd on this sort of level of people. I think potentially their close circle of friends, those people were in those places for reasons, not necessarily just because of the social dynamic and the fact that they liked them, but they were there for a reason with strategy. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but I think when you're that far above the parapet of the rest of what average looks like, you know, things are aligned for reasons, aren't they? So really hard. But I think in terms of, if you're talking about staff and talking about culture and talking about being leaders, that's where Jobs comes into play, because he built that culture of kind of creation, innovation, persuasion, marketing, relatability. It was cool. Apple is cool, isn't it? You know, it's just a cool product. The Mac is cool. I've got a Mac. Mike, my business partner's got a HP. It's not cool. That's not a cool computer.
That's the dynamic of your relationship, though, right? You're more
Yeah.
Jobs, he's more Gates.
Yeah, to a level. Yeah, to a level, there is a bit of that, and that's why I think yin and yang. You know, what a power combo. You know, it's a shame that Ronaldo and Messi never played together, because what a combo they would have been. In the same way with these guys, you know, Johnson and Kobe. You know, you look at a lot of these people and they are yin and yangs to each other in some cases. But this one's a hard one. But I think, you know, in terms of relationships downwards in the business as a leader, Jobs wins it hands down. And in terms of closeness as a circle, I would think that Gates is a better friend than Jobs to others. I think, because he would put them before his vision, his agenda. But that's an assumption from looking in. So depending on how you score it, it would be very difficult.
Alex?
Yeah, I think the word relationship is quite a nice, warm, fluffy word, isn't it? And I'm not sure Jobs would have had many of those relationships, if any. The initial one that he obviously struck up was with Wozniak, and they went on to obviously create one of the great business duos of all time. But again, you get the feeling that with Jobs' relationship, there was always a need for them. You know, there was something that he required from them, rather than actually, I just think you're a great person or we get on. And Wozniak was, again, that yin and yang person to Jobs, the person that would create the back end side of things for him then to go and sell it and market it and be brilliant with it. So, you know, I think this, again, a really tough one. I saw around Gates, you know, friends with Buffett, Al Gore, people like that. He was probably a lot more comfortable in that sort of looking up dynamic, and well, not that he had to look up to many people, to be fair, if any, but with people on his sort of peer group, whereas Jobs was the great influencer. And within this category, there's talk of colleagues and partners, and I think that's enough to say Jobs was brilliant at influencing colleagues and partners.
What about from a collaboration perspective, relationships amongst Jobs and Gates? Like,
What do you
because,
mean?
well, like if you look at Apple, it's quite a closed off system compared to like the likes of Microsoft or other ways where everything's open. Like, anyone got anything to say on that?
So the research I did, and because of the nature of this topic and the types of people and being able to get underneath the surface of it, the research for me only led to the suggestion that Gates was better at collaboration. He was better at integrating with other business leaders and formulating a wider plan and connectivity. The word that really stands out amongst this empowering the relationships, though, is the meaningful bit. I agree with what's been said prior. I don't think there were many meaningful relationships other than those that serve the needs of both parties.
Yeah. I am looking at this. So from my perspective, Steve Jobs was amazing at inner circle relationships, the teams around him, what he was doing to try and empower the small group of people around him. And Gates was more of, he was great at negotiating with people, sparking relationships with new businesses, because his business model wasn't the product. It was the software that made the product run. So we never had a product to sell as in a physical one. It was all software. So he needed to be the top negotiator, and probably build more powerful relationships on a larger circle than Jobs did. Looking at personal relationships, from what I can see, none of them were that great. Most of the stories, when you read through them, are, yeah, it was a great relationship, but I left because they were too focused on the computer stuff for pretty much both of them, to be fair, going down the line. So, yeah, I think they're both great at particular parts of creating and empowering relationships, but just very different to their approaches and outcomes. One
more question on that one. Family, though. What would you say on that one?
Gates.
Marginally.
Marginally.
No.
When I read the story, mate, most people only because I looked into if any of them struggled with relationships. That was actually the question I typed in, so it was biased, the answer that I got out of it, to be fair. But both of them did. One of the things that a lot of the girlfriends and family members have said over the years, it was quite frustrating and hard, to be fair, to because they were so focused.
I think when you see Gates working with his wife on a lot of the kind of the charitable stuff, they seem quite yin and yang, and they seem to complement each other. And she seems very empowered by the cause and the purpose behind it. So yeah, I think if you talk family and you look at kind of how he is now, and it's not to say that Jobs wouldn't be like that now, 10 years, 12 years on, it's hard to say. But if you compare now versus, 12, 13 years ago for Jobs, I would say Gates. Yeah.
I mean, they divorced last year, though, didn't they? So there's obviously both of them ended their relationships, or it came to a natural end. So there must have been something there as well.
Yeah.
James?
One question I was just going to pose off of the back of that is, obviously with Jobs dying at the period he did, could that have been, it would be interesting to know, could that have been a trigger moment for Gates to kind of go, life's short, and I've kind of come through the ranks with this guy, I've contended with him for this length of time, and now he's gone. Would you think that could have been a moment for him where he went, I've got to change my ways a little bit, potentially?
Possibly.
Even from a Jobs perspective of like him and his daughter, and the relationship with his daughter was quite strained from that relationship, but then rekindled that part to it. Even I think he named one of his pieces after her, and then rebuilt that relationship back up. And like we've had how many times you see in a podcast, you speak to someone where they've gone through that period of testing something, and somewhere down the line that's fallen away, which is his inability at that time to accept that you have a daughter, despite her sort of love for wanting that. And then obviously there was a point where that flipped, and he decided he wanted to invest in that relationship. So yeah, an interesting one. So what are we going to say on this one then?
Should we go from Dave?
Yeah, James, we're going to go to you first, mate. So you can jump in.
Cool, right. So
I'm going to copy you as well, James.
So for empowering relationships, I'm going to go. This is a tough one. I'm going to go 6 for Gates, 7 for Jobs.
Oh, Dave.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, I'm going to. Where am I going to go with this? Relatively low. Okay, I'm going to put Gates slightly above Jobs, and I'm going to go 6 for Gates and 5 for Jobs.
Ian?
I can't believe I've said that.
I'm going to take this in the leadership business, head of Microsoft, head of Apple sort of view. And as a result, I'll give Jobs an 8 and Gates a 5.
Alex?
8-7 Jobs.
8-7 Jobs. So we're coming in for a 6 on that one. 34.5, 35.5. And that one coming in 7.
I'm a bit nervous now. I want Jobs to win this, but
it's actually quite neck and neck.
yeah, no, I'm noticing that.
It's like about 0.5 out of it, really, when you look on the mean averages of them.
We're meant to be pundits. We can't support a team. We would not get invited onto Sky Sports, would we?
Exactly.
We're meant to be impartial.
Data speaks for itself.
James is wearing a black t-shirt, or black top today, so I think he's repping a certain particular person. Ooh. And Alex, you look quite studious today, mate, in your top. So you could be
first time I've been called that. Thanks.
Gates. And Dave, I don't even know what you're doing there, mate. So optimal environments. This one's a really interesting one. So environmental factors and workspaces. Did Steve Jobs or Bill Gates prioritize in fostering innovation and productivity? And also, I'll add to this, was it a healthy environment? Alex?
Yes, I think Jobs expected people to move with him and inspired activity, and probably the expectations he set on people led to them being able to do more than they could ever think they could. So there's something to be said for that. I think looking more at Gates, he believed that growing while transforming the life of others around him, it was the best path to success. So I think he was more giving and more holistic with that. Focused a lot on employee development, free HR software, 360 feedback tools, massive focus on productivity. So always, never, the only thing that money couldn't buy you was more time, was one of the things that he used to say. So plans his day precisely, and also invested in productivity apps for his staff. So I think Gates again was a little bit more of a holistic thinker around how to help others and bring them on the journey, whereas Jobs did it a different way and just sort of, expected them to move with him and demanded that a little bit more.
James?
The piece of the research, and it is quite clear from the product, and I do think this is influenced by the way in which Jobs, everything about Jobs was about simplicity, wasn't it? It was about being detail oriented, but as simple as it possibly could be. And the physical environments for him, it was imperative that it was minimalist and simple. And so that then for me feeds through into the workforce. It feeds through then into the product, into the innovation. So that was the thing I connected with from the research, is that everything followed this simple pathway and then fed through into the products that they then released. But in terms of optimal environments from a support mechanism, I would probably say that I agree with Alex. Gates created environments for people to flourish. Jobs expected people to conform.
Dave?
Yeah, I agree with what the guys are saying, to be honest. I initially was all for Jobs, but when you look at the management styles of the two leaders, it seems that with Jobs, I think what one of them said when I was reading something, it was an article somewhere, and it was like, you can get this. People who work there were sometimes in Apple were sometimes afraid of losing the job if you weren't going with the plan. It didn't seem like the best. However, if you were in the clique of the circle of the ones that were doing what they were told to do and pleasing him, then that was amazing. But yeah, I've got to say, I kind of agree with the guys. I'm going to go on the side of Gates on this one.
And what about you, Ian? Anything else to add?
Yeah. Quote manager today. Big on the quotes. Jobs quote. This again sums up what I was saying earlier on in Mind Mastery. So be a yardstick of quality. Some people aren't used to being in an environment where excellence is expected. And I was like, oh, that's a powerful quote.
Yeah.
I like that, Jobs. And then if you try and look for kind of the equivalent version or something else that sits out there from Gates, another one that I thought was awesome. Don't compare yourself to anyone else in the world. If you do, it's an insult to yourself. And I was like, okay, so they're both on that level, but then who backs it up? Well, the good thing about US businesses is they're rated based on their attrition with staff. And Microsoft has a B plus 76 out of 100, and Apple has a B minus 71 out of 100.
God, so close.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the best 0.00001% of businesses out there. But in terms of what people say and then what their business backs up, Microsoft is a better place to work according to official rankings. So
that's like top Trump stat there, mate.
Yeah, isn't it?
Concept. This is essentially top Trumps.
Love it, mate. So what are we going for that then?
Well, with that in mind, for me, I would give Gates a 7.6 out of 10 and 7.1 out of 10.
I'm trying to add them up here.
Okay, I'll round up and round down. It's 8 for Gates and 7 for Jobs.
Cool.
I'll let the facts do the work.
Dave, when you on this one next.
I'm too scared. I'm looking forward, thinking that this is going one way in this now. I'm gonna have to give it to Gates, I'm afraid. I'm gonna be doing a 7 and an 8. Gates being the 8.
Alex?
Oh, it's tough. Yeah, I'd have to go yeah, 8-7 to Gates. I do see a lot of worth in the culture that Jobs creates, and what Ian said with the quote. That got me at the end a little bit, but I'll stick with 8-7 to Gates.
James, changing it all?
I don't know why I've got such an allegiance to Jobs, but this is hurting a little bit because I am right there with the boys. It's a clean sweep for Gates on this one, 8-7.
And he's going to win another one in a minute.
I don't know why. I don't know why I've got such an allegiance to him.
Yeah.
So 8-7. Are you doing 8-7 as well?
Yeah, 8-7 to Gates.
Cool, that's an interest. That's pulled it back up.
It's close at the final tee.
So close. I actually recalculated. It was like 35.5 to Gates and 37 to Jobs. And then that last one, I just pulled it back for 44 to 43.5.
Wow.
So we're so close then. And it's amazing actually, because when we first discussed this, we all had preconceived biases. So this is what's good about this podcast episode.
Yeah.
How that changes from everyone having a conversation. So last two, vitality and well-being. So how did Steve Jobs and Bill Gates manage the balance between their demanding careers and personal health and well-being?
Where am I?
Let's go to Alex. Let's go to Alex on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think on this one, what stood out for me was the switch Job made in that period between Apple to embrace meditation, mindfulness, really buy into sort of the Buddhist way of life. And I know that, it played a really important part in his life since he visited India in 1974. And I think for me, that probably was the biggest thing he did in terms of taking care of himself. But, something that people talk around a lot more now, and, everyone talks around having that quiet moment and meditation and, manifestation and that side of things. Whereas Jobs was actively engaged in that at the time where he was probably in his pomp. So, I'm going to make a play for Jobs on that one straight away. In terms of Gates, I can't say that I know in as much detail, but obviously likes his tennis, had some things that kept him fit and well, but I'm sure someone else can expand a little bit more.
Who's going to expand on that one?
Dave wanted to.
I'm the same, to be honest. Yeah, I'm going to give this one to Jobs based on the Zen mastery and meditation that he used to do. Again, I've not seen much from Gates other than the research I've done, which he likes to read, play bridge with Warren Buffett and play tennis every now and again. Other than that, but yeah, you don't really see him doing any of those things. But yeah, I'm going to be erring on the side of Jobs on this one.
It's an interesting one, this, because it's triggered a thought that connects back to learning and growth very quickly. And that is that I recently met a CEO. He's a CEO of a £340 million business. So it's a big firm. And this guy attributes his entire trajectory in business, all of his success, to the fact of mindfulness and meditation on a daily basis. Like, he practices it daily. And whenever he's had a big decision to make in business, he will meditate on it if he can't get to a place of a decision, and he'll then use his intuition off the back. And that's why when we went in my head, I went back to learning and growth and thinking, well, Gates was very practical and read lots, whereas for me, Jobs maybe spent a lot of time more in his own head, processing, meditating on it, and coming to that conclusion. I've got nothing to support Gates on this. This is Jobs for me.
And Ian?
Oh, here we go.
Minus 10.
Hold this beer.
So I think it's one of those things where they probably both didn't talk about it too much. And I always wonder whether if someone's got something they're trying to work through, they take an action. So Jobs was adopted. He's obviously into the Buddhistry and the mindfulness, and what's he trying to fix going through that was the question that I was looking at, because I just took that mindful mastery point and I was really interested to observe him. So then I was trying to work out, okay, well, he's quite into that. He looks in shape, he's always looks fit and healthy whenever you've seen him. So he's obviously quite balanced on that basis. So what was the Gates equivalent? And then I found an interview that Gates had done with Forbes, and they asked him a question around, with all the hectic life that you've got, how do you stay mentally and physically focused? And this was the answers that he gave. He does an hour on the treadmill every single day. He constantly focuses on getting rid of bad habits, such as binge drinking, never smoking, anything that would relate to lung cancer, liver illness, or bad habits that have resulted in other family members. He will eradicate from his routine. He was obsessed with sleep, and he felt that was basically his way of being able to mentally focus on what he wanted to, was from getting sleep. Hydration was vital in his daily routine. He had quite a strict diet of whole foods, personal accountability partners that would make sure that he was personally accountable to what he wanted to do, constantly having regular health checkups, and set from a health and fitness routine point of view, SMART goals that meant he was able to achieve what he didn't particularly enjoy doing. And that was in an interview with Forbes from Gates. So I think anyone that gets to that level, both of them behind the scenes, probably have to have some elite level routine that allows them to be mentally clear and physically able to do what they did. The problem you've got is obviously one of them has passed away many years ago, and then you've got one of them living. So that was an interesting interview, because I was going exactly down the same path as everyone else, but then I read that and I was like, well, then that clearly makes sense to me. Yeah,
James.
But my only question was, and Ian's cleared it up because he's mentioned the name. I didn't know whether you were reading something that Dimitri had done or Bill Gates had done.
yeah.
Didn't know whether that was an
That's
interview with Dimitri or Bill Gates.
Well, it stood out, James.
But with Ian writing that or saying that about what Forbes said in that part, does that change any of your three perceptions and what you guys just said about, it's so in favour of not
Definitely.
Gates, but so in favour of Jobs?
Definitely bridges the gap. I mean, for me, the most powerful tool, most powerful USP anyone has is their mind. And I'd still probably just edge it to Jobs just on the time taken to do that. But yeah, admittedly, Ian's sort of come up with quite a few reasons to.
I mean, it'd be different it'd be different if he had the bag of books whilst on the treadmill for an hour, because then you could probably say like maybe there's some commando level of
I want to know with book readers that have been like historic book readers, whether they now have gone to audio books or whether they stick on book reading. Like, I'm really interested to know. Someone like Gates, because he can read so fast. Are you reading books still, or are you just listening? Like, I don't know whether it's the methodical approach of having to sit down and tunnel vision focus on reading that really gets them to the level they want to be at. But I just felt, well, if this guy can read 150 pages at that rate, if he can read 14 books in a week on holiday, then someone that's over caffeinated, underhydrated, underslept can't do that. The brain can't physically do it. So how is he able to technically do that with problem solving, with work, with an engineering kind of analysis kind of outlook? How is he able to do that? And that's why it took me down that wormhole to find out. And that's what I found out. And then I was like, well, like James says, it related because it's a lot of what we've been working on with Dimitri. And that allows someone to sit in an interview, be calm, collected, smile, and technically at a higher level than most. So it was quite interesting to see that.
Really, when you look at that, vitality and well-being is not just on the body. It's vitality and well-being on your brain, isn't it? And that then helps your mind in how you make decisions, how you process stuff, how you all that sort of side to, isn't it?
It's the circle.
Very relevant that it's obviously World Mental Health Day to touch on that. Because a lot of people immediately go to physical health, don't they?
Yeah.
That's like a default. Whereas actually, are there that many people? Are there as many people that practice meditation and mindfulness and gratitude and so on to give them that counterbalance? It's an interesting topic.
Well, it's a great one that Ian's picked up on that, because if you look at it, like binge drinking, all sorts of stuff like that, and sleeping, your brain, going back to what we've just said here, like your brain is like the hardware, like your mind is the software, the capacity of how you run it. So like if you haven't got your brain hydrated or that element to it, you can't do your mindfulness, you can't do your problem solving, you can't get to sleep. So there is a vitality on some of the nutrients, the omega-3s you put in your body. You might think, it's just for my body, but actually it's helping your brain develop even better. So great little swerve curveball in there, Ian.
On jobs, because that was on me only researching on Gates there, but I also did a little bit on jobs. What I found quite interesting was he was like massively into fasting as well, which I intermitted fast, but he was quite into fasting, which probably shows why he was always looked quite lean typically. But when he was diagnosed with the pancreatic cancer, that he actually went against the doctor's wishes and tried to fix it himself. And to do that, he became like he went down an extreme vegetarian diet. It obviously didn't work, but in terms of what he tried to do, he went against medical advice and tried to find the answer himself. And that's quite interesting, because I think if you look at what the information shows today in that type of dietary stuff, it's much more scientifically backed now. And I think he would have been influenced in a different way has he had that diagnosis today than when he had that diagnosis previously. And you can see the route he went down was very much on topic and on trend at that time, and he was influenced by the trend and the topic. It just happened to be that scientifically it was the wrong trend, the wrong topic at that time, which is a shame in reality, but it showed that he was prepared to commit to a particular type of routine and regimen because he felt it was right by him. So both of them in their own way, to be elite, there's something in the background there, I would have thought. So yeah, tough one.
Just a quick one on that one. Sorry, Rob. Ian, when you read that article, when was that produced? Do you know how long Bill Gates has been doing this for?
I don't know, but I'll pull it up because I've got a lot of the notes saved somewhere. I can pull it up and throw it in the comments.
I was wondering if it was a recent thing or he's that, he's been doing it for 20 years. It does make a difference to how I'm going to vote.
It's hard, isn't it? Because again, the influence of things at different times, for all we know, Gates might have seen Jobs die and think, wow, I've got to change something or I'll be the same. And then pivoted off the back of it. So I'll find out for you, Dave.
No worries.
Who's going first on this one, Rob?
I just want to look through that. I can find it now. Go on, Alex.
I'm going 9-8 jobs.
9-8 jobs, yeah?
Yeah.
Go on, James.
8-7 jobs.
8-7 jobs. Ian?
9 Gates, 7 jobs.
And Dave, it's in 2020, it looks like.
Oh, so it's quite recent then. Right, okay. Oh, God, it's killing me, this.
Just lost half a point.
Yeah. I'm going to have to give Gates a 6 and Jobs a 5, I'm afraid.
Oh,
I don't think any of them have done enough in that area to support themselves. And let's face it, one of them's dead.
Has a big part to play in it.
It does, mate.
One piece, yep.
So now we're down to the final one, and I won't tell you what the scores are, just so it's not there's no biases in it. So financial mastery. So what financial strategy decisions did both make to employ and ensure their growth of retrospective companies and ventures? So like, we know that Apple is where it is today, but obviously Jobs isn't around for that part to it. But when you look at financial mastery and that delivering of what they did, right, who wants to go first on this one?
I'm afraid Gates absolutely whoops Jobs on financial mastery. Like, stand start. There's not even worth talking about. I mean, you're talking 7 billion versus what, like 200 now billion for Gates or something, wherever he's at. I can't remember what it is, but it's monumentally different. It's also different when you look at the history of Microsoft and the investments that have been made. I mean, it does help having Warren Buffett as your best mate, I suppose. That was always going to help you with financial mastery. But from my perspective and my research, unfortunately, Gates absolutely schoolboys him.
It's a tough one, that.
It's like
Big shout.
I mean, money money again is data. It's as the beauty of this particular one, like some of the others, is the data is the data, and we're talking about financial mastery. So who's worth more at certain age points, who's worth more, who could have potentially been worth. Gates just like beats him everywhere.
Hands down.
It's like it's not a competition.
I mean, the sort of the way Apple's been set out, though, it guarantees that, you know, it's like as we've said, it's throughout, it's cool. Like that financially is always going to be worth, you know, the constant drip into that funnel. I think my my story on this one is from when Jobs was at Pixar. One of my favorite stories was initially had a strategy of focusing on hardware in that business, and they employed someone called John Lasseter, who was someone that was an animator on the side, and he ended up winning an Oscar for a short film called Tin Toy in the short film category. And so Jobs at that point completely switched strategy and started delivering on short films and commercials. And despite this, he was able to keeping the company afloat personally, outlaying $50 million in 1991 of his own money. In 1991, Disney tried to hire John Lasseter. Lasseter turned the job down, but Jobs stopped him and saw an opportunity. So he negotiated a deal with Disney to enable Lasseter to remain a Pixar employee, but work on a feature film with Disney, and the profits would be split. And the film in question was Toy Story.
Yeah.
So essentially that decision secured Pixar's long-term future within that first weekend of taking. So I thought that was such an amazing story and insight into guaranteeing the future of that business. Even if it wasn't Apple that we probably spent most of the time talking about.
Anything else to add from anyone else? Because that's a great one.
It is a great one. I'm looking for someone to save us here on this.
Yeah. Obviously the Gates charity is something that's like massive now, you know, huge. As of last year, records show that they donated just over £50 billion to charitable things like how to fix, you know, diarrhea in third world countries. They've gone to the level of trying to reinvent the sewer systems in third world countries to stop that being a problem. So where they knew they couldn't bring in the same pipe work into these countries, Gates then tasked a certain like space engineer company to basically recreate how they could burn waste to recreate it as fuel to actually power the toilet systems and things like that. And that's all come from the charitable stuff because the guy's worth so much money. That's become a passion of his, I guess. I don't know the detail of it, but even the Gates kids won't inherit they'll inherit like a really micro amount of the fortune because the rest of it, when they pass, will go to these different causes. So, yeah, that's quite powerful.
His kids would probably rate him a 2 then.
Yeah, 100%.
Empowering relationships -10.
Yeah.
So what are we going for this one then? Who wants to kick it off?
9-6 Gates.
Yeah, I mean 10 Gates because he's one of the richest people in the world. So if you can't get a 10 and you're Bill Gates, you're in trouble. And then I think an 8 for Jobs because obviously what he built was amazing, but he's just not as strong on the financial mastery level as Gates. So yeah, for me, 8 and 10.
8 and 10.
I'll go the same, 8 and 10. And if it does end up throwing it in Gates, I've got another question to ask.
James?
Alex?
Sorry, Alex?
Yeah, I'll go 9-8 Gates. I think, it's hard to argue. But again, Jobs' life was cut short. So I think whether he would have changed that much, I'm not sure, to the level of Gates in terms of the holistic side, probably not. But that's why it's slightly closer.
Well, this is like a.
That was big. I'm hoping everyone enjoyed listening to that because you could see how raw and authentic that was. It was a great idea from Alex. I'm buzzing for the next one now. Are we going to do Ronaldo and Messi next, or are we doing Jordan?
Was it Jordan and Kobe? I think Jordan and Kobe.
Oh, do you know what? This is going to hurt so much.
And
Yeah,
again,
I'm going to be the
George-
judge because I'm useless on sports. So,
So-
I'll be the judge on the next one.
61 to Gates and 57.5 to Jobs.
No.
Hey, no
Wait,
way.
just-
I'm going to
goes
ask
to show-
another question. Who would you go out for a beer with?
Okay,
Jobs.
Jobs
There you
just
go.
won.
But boom, don't matter about any of that stuff, mate.
and that's,
Is that-
the
that the
real
ninth-
quiz.
Ninth dimension. Are we going to add that to the website?
Yeah. Who would you go for a beer with as a ninth dimension? Yeah. You've got to complete all 8 before you can go for a beer, though.
So off the back of like that process we've just done there, to wrap it up the podcast, like what's your final thoughts before we started to what we've done now? Because we were on here, let's be honest, we were on here, we're like, let's be honest with listeners, like we were going, Jobs has got it hands down
Yeah.
all day long, and you all had your research there.
Rob, how many sections was it each? Was it 4 each? 4 each? In
What
terms
do you
of
mean?
parts of the 8 dimensions, what was the score in
Oh, yeah,
terms of
who-
how many each one won?
Yeah.
Oh, it's what? So what? The overall?
So was it 4 all? Was it 5-3 in favour of 1?
Oh,
Alex,
You're trying to pull the little bits out here now just to make it even or something.
Make me
aren't you?
analyse this on this scrappy bit of paper I've been doing it.
Just trying to
Oh,
find an
mate.
angle.
Jesus,
Yeah.
right. So
Up.
first one, it was even. Second one, so we've got second one on purposeful achievement. Jobs won it. Learning and growth gate. Even on the Jobs gate on the fourth one, which is energizing recreation.
2-2.
Jobs picked it on the energy empowering relationships.
Gates
Then we've
on
got
environment.
Gates and environment, and then we've got 7.
Oh, Pete.
The number 7, well-being. So Gates on well-being, and then the last one,
Gates 153.
yeah. Thanks for throwing in there, Alex. I really
Actually, not
On-
5-3.
on
We
the
had
end of
draws.
that,
We only won 2.
that
We
was,
won
I
2
needed
out of
some
10.
more to hydrate my brain just to get that one out.
I still prefer Jobs.
Do you know what?
Gates is a weapon. He's not having none of this. No. Jobs all the way.
I was going to say, my
Yeah,
final thoughts on that is that Jobs is a much more inspiring character, just as a rule. Gates is the one that's just got it nailed on. But
Okay,
Jobs
so
is still a more inspiring character.
You know, you got the beer question. If you were going into business tomorrow with one of them, which one would you go into business with?
Gates.
Jobs.
I don't know. Gates is a sneaky fucker. I
Yeah,
don't think I
Jobs.
trust Jobs more.
I'd go into Gates, but I'd have to have the most watertight contract that you've ever got, and knowing that you're going to have to bank a load of money in the background to go legal when he decides to do something about it. Whereas Jobs, if I wanted to go into business with Jobs, it'd be like, let's go Maverick pirate style. Let's go and disrupt whatever we want to do and just go for it.
Yeah.
Jobs. Yeah, Jobs is a little bit more like front of house, which I like to be as well. So he'd show me up. Probably have to go with Gates, unfortunately. The yin and yang.
I'd ask Jobs to fix conveyancing and go into business with him.
Yeah.
Fixing conveyancing's easy.
Someone's got to do it then.
There's another panel debate. There we go.
What did you say, James?
Say again. Who would I go
What
to
did you
business?
say?
Who would I?
Yeah.
Gates.
God, that's an interesting one, isn't it? It goes to show, though, when you look at all that part to it, it's all based around emotion. There's nothing logical about this, isn't it? It's how you make you feel towards it, isn't it? Like those stats say differently to what we thought, and how we even feel afterwards. We're still basing it on our emotions and what we think is our perceptions on it. So
This debate
really,
is
really good.
my view. It would have been Jobs prior to this debate.
I think
really
the thing is that we've just debated people, and we're drawn to brands. We're drawn to Apple over Microsoft, and that shows the power of marketing as well in this day and age. You know, that not always does the best product win. Apple, their products are not technically the best, but we all buy them because we love them, and that shows the power of marketing. And I think Jobs was an amazing marketeer, and something that I've learned on my sort of journey of marketing is that at the beginning, I did marketing based on opinion and failed, and then I did marketing based on data and won. And that's probably in this day and age where most people could take something from it is, how do you market yourself as a person? How do you market your business? And if you're going into marketing based on opinion, as a leader, you will lose.
Mm.
And as a coach in that environment, yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one, mate.
Yeah.
There we go.
Because I always ask people, I go, what's the data? Your opinion, but let's look at the data. The data says different to your opinion. So what are we going to go with? We're going to believe your opinion of something, or we're going to believe the opinion of the data?
Rob, are you going to send Gates one of those trophies over your right shoulder?
Well, say to him, well done. We'll get a Project Peak Performance one, saying he's won the category of this one, and see what
Okay.
Divvy coming for a pulse
See if
episode.
he'll come on, yeah, and have a little
Yeah,
chat
we'll
with
get
us
him on
about
it.
how
We'll
he
get him
feels
as a
about it.
guest.
Yeah,
Him as a
screw
guest.
Netflix, Project Peak Performance.
Love that.
Great.
Okay,
episode, guys.
cool. So just for the next episode, like what have we got coming up for the next episode?
And
back to a
we've
guest.
recorded some awesome ones, haven't we? So
Yeah.
I think someone's recorded with the sleep expert. Yeah, we've had social media gurus in the house. We've got black belt jiu-jitsu female people that are a lady that's also in like childcare and psychology and stuff like that as well, which is pretty awesome. Obviously, we've all recorded our own. We've just had Dave's go out, which has been the most popular one on YouTube so far. So well done, Dave, on that. And I'm sure we'll have one of our 4 drop in the next couple of weeks as well. So we've got quite a lot for people to stay tuned and watch, really.
Yeah.
And Alex has got an exciting guest as well.
Got a biggie coming up, yeah, to be revealed, but recording 2nd of November, so it won't be out too far after, I can't imagine.
Beautiful.
Keep your eyes on the page to see which one's dropping next.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Right, guys, thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.
See you next
Thank
week.
you.
Thanks, everyone.